Support for Exploring the American Spirit is provided by Sassy Shears, Riverside Salon, Spa, and Boutique, where clients can spend an hour or an entire day. Hair, nails, skincare, and massage for adults and children. More online at sassyshears.com.
Hello, I'm Mary Parks. American spirit. Say those words and many images come to mind. You may think of heroic acts in times of tragedy, a person or an entire family that overcomes adversity. In reality, selfless acts by ordinary individuals that help others take place every day in every part of our country. They aren't likely to make the headlines, but their impact is just as real, and the effect on our communities is just as powerful. At Exploring the American Spirit, we're going to take a look at some of the phenomenal accomplishments done by people who saw a need and found a way to meet it. I'll be your guide on this incredible journey, so pull up your chair and relax as we explore the American spirit. Right up there with beach parties and the Hollywood sign, nothing brings to mind the classic image of California like a finely tuned and humming hot rod. Combining this classic image and the desire to help others facing end-of-life issues is the essence of the Phil Braybrook's Memorial Car Show that benefits the Southern California Hospice Foundation. Phil Braybrook served in the Air Force during the Korean War. Following his tour of duty, he went to work at Lockheed Aircraft. His passion, though, was cars. Braybrooks saved enough money to open a shop selling mufflers.
He loved cars. He loved racing cars. He had hot rod cars as young as 13. My dad would race his motorcycle, would race his cars. He started working on exhaust systems, muffler systems for vehicles. And he built his own race engines. All of his friends wanted him to start building motors for them, so he would build race motors. He was one of the first guys to set a track record at the Lions Drag Strip Raceway, and all of the guys wanted him to start building motors for them. After a few years, he started just selling the parts. So now we've been in business for 55 years.
Lisa Samodi remembers her dad, Phil Braybrook, working 6 days a week for decades at his store, Phil's Muffler Shop, which eventually transitioned into J&M Speed Center. Phil exemplified the typical hard work and motivation to move forward of the American spirit. He sold parts for all those high-performance cars that he enjoyed so much. Phil was an expert when it came to street and performance parts. He became somewhat of a hot rod legend in California. At one time, he was even considering the NASCAR circuit. Pat Braybrooks remembers those days and meeting her future husband at the Fontana Drags in the 1960s.
He asked me to go to the show, the drive-in movie. So when he showed up, he had a new 62 Chevy that he was going to go NASCAR with. And he was, had been working on it. Anyway, it had no seats, no front seats. And it was very loud. And it was just, he just had a lawn chair sitting in the front seat for me. And he pulled up at my house, and the car was so loud, and my father came out, and he just shook his head and went back in the house. It was just kind of funny. And so, yeah, we went to the drive-in movie. That was our first date. He was winning everything, and he was tall and dark and handsome, and
the rest is history.
yeah, the rest is history.
Phil had many years of success in the hot rod industry. Tragically, his family believes lifelong exposure to what he loved most ultimately contributed to his death. In 2008, Phil fought pulmonary fibrosis. Tissue deep in his lungs became thick and scarring occurred, making his ability to even breathe very difficult. Currently, more than 80,000 Americans have idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF, and another 30,000 cases are diagnosed annually. The causes vary. Typically, life expectancy is 3 to 5 years after being diagnosed. Phil, though, had also survived a heart attack and a stroke. His love for his family and a good classic automobile never wavered, even when he was near death.
I was over at his home. We were out in the garage. He was tinkering around with one of his hot rods. He had this 23 T-bucket with a flathead motor in it, royal blue. And I said, you know what, Dad? Let's get in this thing. Let's go for a ride. We loaded up his little oxygen tank, and it was a convertible. So we just went cruising around town in that little summer afternoon.
Who drove?
I did. I did. He wanted to go to the gas tank, fill up the gas, and yeah, we just kind of drove around Riverside and had a wonderful day. It was a nice day.
And how long after did he pass?
2 days later.
Phil Braybrook was buried in true hot rod style, a casket that was candy apple red with gold flames.
At his funeral, so many of his friends and so many of our customers showed up, and they brought their hot rods, and it was like a car show at the cemetery. I mean, it was just amazing, all the cars and all of his friends.
It's a tough, tearful story to share, but Pat and Lisa give a lot of credit to the organization that helped them get through it all, Hospice.
It is scary. It is scary, but it is a fact of life, and they're just there to help you. They keep from, having to get them up, get them dressed, get them in the car, take them all the way to the doctors, figure out the medication, figure out oxygen tanks and all that. We don't have to do that. They come to us. They bring the medicine to us. They bring the nurses to us. They bring the oxygen to us. And it just makes it so much easier on him and on my mom not having to do all that.
After Phil's death, Pat and Lisa continued their friendship with the hospice team that helped the family through their most difficult times.
I think for the most part, the vast majority of Americans in today's society are death denying, in that we don't want to talk about death. We don't want to believe that we will face our own death one day. And so as a result, it's something that no one ever talks about. And hospice, of course, we deal with death every single day, but we believe here that hospice is not about the end, it's really about a new beginning.
Michelle Wolfestag knows all too well about hospice because of her own personal experience. Still another example of the American spirit, taking a difficult personal experience and using it to reach out to help others.
I'm a 2-time stroke survivor, and after my second stroke, I was in a coma for 8 days. I was on life support, and the doctors never thought I would wake up. And a lot of times our families that we're working with wonder, can my loved one hear me when they're in their coma? Should I talk to them? Should I pray with them? Should I try to engage with them? And I tell them absolutely, because I know that when I was in my coma, I could hear everything. I could hear the doctors asking me to open my eyes. I could hear my husband praying with me. And so really in hospice, we know that when you're dying, hearing is the last thing to go. And so we always encourage families to sit with their loved one, to say a prayer with them, to talk with them, to say goodbye, to say I love you, to say I'm sorry, and really to have that beautiful closure so that they can pass peacefully from this life on to the next.
Michelle is a dedicated part of Southern California Hospice Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose role is to help families, along with the hospice team, with things like groceries, utility bills, transportation, and final wishes. A supplement, if you will, for medical care. Last year, 263 patients and their families had their final wish granted or were assisted with basic needs through the foundation.
And, you know, it was nice to have them there.
They were there with you when he passed?
Yes, yeah, they were. And they just handled everything for us. So we didn't have to worry about anything else. We could focus just on him.
Lisa took over the business when her father died. Some people frowned, saying she was a woman in a man's industry. She had to prove herself, not an easy task. But in the months ahead, the business continued to thrive. J&M Speed Center was also about to become home to one of Southern California's most popular car shows.
We have a lot of our customers that bring in their hot rods that, you know, they're very proud of their cars. They've spent a lot of money fixing them up, and we've got some really beautiful cars that come in here. You know, we had never put on a car show before. We weren't sure what to do or how to do it or what it was going to cost, but we thought, oh, it would be a nice little thing to do in memory of my father.
The mother-daughter team figured at least a few dozen of Phil's friends and customers would take part, never dreaming that within a month, more than 400 people would sign up to display their classic cars in a show to raise money for hospice.
The second year we had the car show, we put it on the flyers that all proceeds would go to hospice, and it was amazing how it seems like everybody knows someone that's needed the help of hospice. And so many people donated. One person gave Lisa $500 ahead of time for the show.
Just because of the cause?
Just because of the cause, yeah.
Year after year, the Phil Braybrook's Memorial Car Show has grown, and so has the amount of money being raised to help families in need. The car show crowd is a generous group, raising roughly $53,000 for the Southern California Hospice Foundation and Companion Hospice. Phil's family asked that some of the money be used to pay for much-needed fingertip oxygen testing devices that hospice nurses could carry with them on home visits, something they appreciated during Phil's care.
It's important to be able to communicate with your family, talk about it, and like I said, hospice was there to help us go through all that too.
I remember afterwards, I got a letter from hospice saying that it was around before Thanksgiving, and they said, we realize you've had traditions for many, many years. Now is the time to start new traditions. You know, like your...
Even after
Phil
had passed, they were still remembering you?
Yes, oh yeah. And that made me feel good because...
So, one of those new traditions? Carrying on Phil's legacy with the Memorial Car Show. Before he died, Braybrooks had been inducted into San Bernardino's Hot Rodding Hall of Fame and named the Dale Earnhardt Man of the Year. The family of this icon to classic cars wants to support those who can't always afford the resources for end-of-life care. That's the American spirit. Shoes, part of the basic wardrobe for most of us. But for children in need, a proper fitting pair of shoes may be a luxury.
I need a size 1, girl size 2, and 2 size 3s.
Just by looking at a pair of children's shoes, Amber Moore can tell you what size they are.
It comes from 6 years of experience, not because of a career in shoe sales, but through a commitment of caring, she says, for the Kozy Toez of school children. She saw a need and, with a true American spirit attitude, worked out a way to fulfill that need.
My name is Dominique, and today we are bagging and tagging for Kozy Toez for an event we have next week. So we're just preparing the shoes to be dropped off for the kids.
With the help of volunteers like Dominique Valverde, Moore began the nonprofit organization Kozy Toez in 2010, an organization committed to providing new shoes to children in local communities in Los Angeles, San Diego, Riverside, and Orange counties. She delivers sneakers in what she calls a shoe drop. A child Amber remembers well was a child at La Habra Elementary who had asked a teacher for duct tape to fix the one pair of shoes he owned, a worn-out pair of sneakers that were not only falling apart but too small as well. He walked away that afternoon with 3 pair of shoes thanks to Kozy Toez.
I never take their old shoes, but this guy I needed, and he's like, "Are you going to throw those away?" And I go, "No, I'm going to keep them and remind so I can remember why I do this."
What began as a simple gesture of kindness for one child has turned into a full-time job for Amber Moore.
I've been doing shoes so long that I usually know their size just by looking at it. It's kind of creepy. I'm like, "Oh, you're a size 1. I don't think you were a size 4. And I'm usually right.
I'm doing it because I've realized that there's a need in our community and in surrounding communities that kids are going to school without shoes that fit. Several years ago, I was a Girl Scout troop leader, and I was listening to one of my parents talk about a child in her class who didn't have shoes that were fitting correctly, and he was being teased at school because his feet stunk so bad. It's a problem everywhere. Shoes are something that people, I don't think about.
As a mother, what was it that bothered you most?
That this little boy had shoes that didn't fit, and my daughters have plenty of shoes, more than enough. So I was irritated by that. So I said, well, give me his shoe size and I'll buy him some shoes.
And from there, it just snowballed?
She said, well, there's dozens of children like this. And I opened my mouth and said, well, give me all of their shoe sizes. I will buy them all a pair of shoes. And she kind of chuckled because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And I said, well, I mean, not me. I'm going to make my friends help me. And the first year I walked in with 36 pairs of shoes. And it's just grown ever since then. Last year I gave over 1,000 pairs of shoes away.
Did you win the lottery or something? How
No.
do you fund this?
I ask people. I have a group in Orange County, a group of men that sponsor 300 pairs of shoes a year. Companies give me shoes. If I don't have funding for shoes, but there's a need, I still pay for the shoes myself.
What do you think you spend a year to help other children have shoes?
This year alone, because I was given an opportunity to give shoes at 3 YMCAs, and I didn't quite have enough funding for it. This year alone, I probably spent $2,000 on shoes and socks.
And socks.
Yes. Oh, everyone gets a brand new pair of shoes, a pair of socks, because often they come to school with socks that don't that have holes in them, or socks, no socks at all. And they get a knapsack so they can put their old shoes in a bag, so they don't get rid of them. They can use them to play in or whatever.
So you're a nonprofit organization, and you're buying shoes and socks and little goodie bags for all of these children. When they're on the receiving end, tell me about that.
I hear things like, oh, wow, I think these shoes are going to make me run super fast. One little girl a couple weeks ago, she's 12, and she started to cry. And I said, why are you crying? And she says, well, these are the first pair of shoes I've had that have come from a box. And I said, like, what do you mean? She goes, no one else's feet have been in these shoes. So she has been, her entire life, had been given shoes that were, from somebody else, passed along. And often that's what's happening. These kids are getting shoes that aren't new to them, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with hand-me-downs, but everybody should have a brand new pair of shoes sometime in their lives.
Moore works with schools and various organizations to come up with a list of students who could use a new pair of shoes, elementary through high school age. Her rewards are plentiful.
I will get a package in the mail afterwards, after we've done a drop, and it's just a bunch of thank you cards from the kids. Speech and Language Development Center in Buena Park is for sure my favorite drop. They provide education for kids that are 6 months all the way up to 26 years of age that suffer from all kinds of different disabilities. It's an amazing organization. I love them. This was their book that they sent me. All the kids colored pictures and just wrote on here, thank you. And I think these are the things that I love the most, because it reminds me that it's not just a gift that was that day. It's something that they think about every time they put those shoes on.
The former hairdresser, though, admits she had a personal obstacle to overcome in order to make Kozy Toez work.
I don't like feet, so it's kind of weird that this became my thing.
What do you mean you don't like feet?
I don't like feet. I was a hairdresser, and when I had to get my cosmetology license, I didn't want to touch anybody's feet. So that was difficult to get that part of my schooling done. But I don't like feet. They're not my thing. I don't like stinky feet. But for some reason, when doing these kids, their stinky feet are my favorite. So.
And you have children, and children always have stinky feet.
Oh, my kids have the worst stinky feet ever.
We're gonna get some new shoes. Who has really stinky feet? Yes! Yes, my friend! I like the stinky feet. Stinky feet.
That said, more presses onward in an effort to bring smiles to the faces of so many deserving children, stinky feet or not. So this is the overflow, or what's out here?
Yeah, these are the shoes that I buy whenever I see them on sale, because I buy them all year long, and then when I get a list, I go through the shoes I have, and then I shop according to whatever I don't have. And then these are all my friends. Hi, friends. Hello.
We followed Kozy Toez to one of their shoe drops at a YMCA after-school center. Scores of volunteers showed up to help properly fit students with new shoes. Each child was given a new pair of socks and a drawstring bag to carry them home. This shoe drop was in a community where 85% of families are on some type of assistance.
Okay, are we ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Think this is your right size? Under my glasses, I can't see. Okay, stand up.
That's awesome. I like the color.
Get it work here?
You like them?
Yes, no? How's that feel? Yeah? Okay, that's a Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal shoes? They feel tight? Stand up once. Do they fit okay?
Every shoe drop, there's something amazing that happens. There's a kid who just lost his mom, or from a drug overdose, or dad's fighting mom, or one boy, grandma was taking care of him. She didn't have enough money to barely feed him, let alone buy him some new shoes. We've had kids that have just been in trouble. One boy was living with his aunt, and his aunt said he doesn't need anything, he doesn't deserve anything, he's been naughty or whatever. And I just said, what? This isn't a handout. This is just a gift for me to him, and maybe this will just pray about it is what I asked her. Just think about it, and I'm gonna go home and think about it, and hopefully you'll change your mind. And she did, and so the little boy got a pair of shoes, and it really changed things, because she went from a place of being angry at him to a place of having a little bit of compassion towards him.
I'm excellent. Are you in kindergarten or first grade?
First grade.
At 5 years old, good for you. All right, you know how to take your shoes off all by yourself? All right. Excellent job. All right. And I bet we have new socks for you too. You want to take your socks off? All right. Are your feet ticklish? No. Yes. No. No. Oh man. Where's the fun in that? Okay, I'll put these inside your shoes here. And they're looking for your bag to bring it to you. So Blake, what do you like best in school?
My teacher.
Your teacher, that is wonderful.
We provide childcare to 1,500 children a day, which a majority, like the area home gardens here, it's either low income or no income, working poor, or living at below poverty line. So the need is unreal.
But shoes are such a basic necessity.
Well, when you figure there's usually more than one child in the family and you're already operating at or below poverty level, shoes are a big deal.
So one pair of shoes a school year is it?
It's pretty typical for a lot of the kids we serve. And that's kind of where Amber got her start as well, is just the basic need of shoes not being met and how that can make a difference. Foot pain, uncomfortable shoes, being embarrassed, those distractions in a school environment. And for self-esteem is a big deal. One pair of shoes are a big deal.
How does that feel? Okay, does it feel not too tight?
After the first shoe drop, the little girl that really changed the whole thing for me. I mean, she was in an abusive situation at home, and it was a very ugly little story. But this little girl, her meekness and her kindness and her just how loving she was, despite what she had been through. I just knew at that moment that I was going to give shoes away forever as long as I could, because it was like a moment for her, a moment where she could maybe not be focused on what was happening in her life, and she could focus on something else. So it just happened.
Did she not have shoes?
Oh, no, she had shoes. They were old and tattered and stuff, but her home life was not very nice. And it
Like
was,
her shoes, tattered and...
It was a mess.
More hopes to one day see the little girl that unknowingly helped brighten the days of so many other children through Kozy Toez.
I think that we have gotten away from what's important and what is necessary to what's fun. And there's a sense of entitlement, but it's more of entitlement towards toys and fun things. Nobody wants to get socks and underwear for Christmas, but we need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to providing those basic necessities so that people realize that those are their responsibilities, not the newest iPhone or the newest Nintendo. I think that we've gotten away from that, and I think it's important that we have shoes that fit, because if you are walking around barefoot, your feet are going to get damaged and hurt. If you're being teased at school, you're not focusing on your education. You're focusing on being teased at school. If kids have so much going on these days, the last thing they need to do is be distracted by shoes. So if I can take that one distraction away from them so that they can focus on their education, that's really important to me.
Handwritten notes like this one is also what makes Kozy Toez so worthwhile. Thank you for our shoes. You came at the right time. My soccer shoes are ripped. One of Kozy Toez's biggest supporters, Saints MC, the motorcycle club, donates countless hours and shoes for shoe drops every year. The SoCal bikers spend quality time with the children, fitting them with shoes and socks and words of kindness.
My thing is I want everyone to feel confident. I want them to feel confident and have self-pride and self-worth, because when we feel good about ourselves, then we do good. It spreads. If you're not feeling so great and you're kind of got a crummy attitude, that also spreads. So if we're positive and we feel good about ourselves because we got a new pair of shoes, because I feel great when I get a new pair of shoes. I don't know about you guys, but I feel great when I get new shoes or a new something. It kind of just lifts you up a little bit. It's humbling, and it's rewarding, and it's
and a basic necessity in life.
It's just a simple pair of shoes. I mean, often I get shoes for less than $15. So one little boy was like, I'm going to be able to run all over the place with these. And he's like, they're super fast. And they didn't even light up. I mean, they were just regular shoes from Walmart. So I was kind of like, yeah, dude, they're going to make you run super fast. And it's a simple pair of shoes. That's all it is.
Feeling good about helping others. That's the American spirit.
We hope you felt the time you invested in watching today's story was worthwhile. It's a privilege for us to bring you these examples of the American spirit. Some will touch and inspire you more than others, but they all in their own way contribute to the fiber and well-being of our communities. We are humbled by the people we meet and are always amazed at what they can accomplish, often by mere grit, determination, and perseverance. That's the American spirit. Join us next time for another stop on our journey exploring the American spirit. I'm Mary Parks.